This is episode 164, and today we're gonna get some innovation insights. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
Hey there, how's it going? Welcome to this new episode of the 360 Entrepreneur. Like always, I'm your host, coming to you from Helsinki, Finland, Yanni Lunga, and today we talk about a trending topic. We're going to be discussing innovation, and you may be, well, Jan, okay, I hear about innovation, I read about it, but why should I care? I mean, I'm a businessman or a businesswoman. I have my own business, or I'm in the process of building my own business, Jan. So why should I care about innovation, really? Well, if those are some of the things that are going on with you right now, you're in the right place, because by the end of this episode, you're going to get a few things that you can actually do to not only to understand the importance of innovation and why it matters to you, regardless of where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, but also you're going to get some tips and things you can do to better understand those who gravitate around your business, people who visit your website, and customers. And today we are joined by innovation expert, angel investor, entrepreneur, and author Scott Bales. The show notes for today's episode are over at yannilunga.com/episode 164. All right, here's the interview with Scott Bales from scottebales.com. Hey everybody, I'm thrilled about today's topic, really, and about who's joining us, because in this episode we're gonna focus on innovation, and we're gonna touch on some of the questions you should ask yourself in order to take your business forward and really move to the next level. And we're joined by an author, speaker, and innovation guru who helps businesses embrace the digital shift. As a thought leader, he thrives on the intersection between cultural and behavioral changes in the face of technology advancement. As I said, he's an author, and he's an author of a couple of books. His latest, Innovation Wars, Driving Successful Corporate Innovation Programs, shares lessons from the most innovative organizations in the world. I'm thrilled to welcome on the show Scott Bales. Scott, how's it going?
I'm doing really well, Jan. How are you today? I'm excited to be on the show as well.
I'm pumped. I mean, I think you can tell it, and I'm really excited because we talk about something that we haven't touched on the show so far, which is great. But I'm also really pumped about it because it's something that I believe is so critical. Because sometimes as entrepreneurs, small business owners, we tend to focus on our own thing so much. We kind of get lost in the day-to-day or weekly activities that we don't really look beyond the borders of our company. We don't look at what others are doing. We don't necessarily look so much at innovation. So thank you for being here, Scott. And I think the first question that is in order here, I mean, I said it, you're an innovation guru. Your latest book, Innovation Wars, focuses on innovation. But I think the first question I really have to ask you, Scott, for everybody who's here with you and I, why innovation? Why should we as entrepreneurs, small business owners, really pay attention to innovation?
Yeah, thanks, Jan. It's a battle that I've had in my head as well in the last 10 years. I'm a former banker, and now serial entrepreneur and innovation consultant. And one thing that became very clear to me over my time of being an entrepreneur was that it's very easy as an entrepreneur to get married to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I actually realized that to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to get married to how you do things.
Right.
So the methods that you actually use to find product market fit, or to design a new technology or business service, the methods that you come to reach those are the parts that's actually repeatable. Mm-hmm. And so the best entrepreneurs that do this multiple times are those that are religious about their methods as opposed to what they actually do. I mean, Jack Dorsey is a fantastic example of that. He has a way of doing things that can be applied to any industry.
Right.
He could jump into books tomorrow and be as successful as he has been with Twitter and Square. And so the method became my secret sauce. But as there's only so many times you can say it over and over and over again. Hence why I wrote the book, is hopefully the book is a more scalable way of me sharing with everyone my method of how I go about entrepreneurship and innovation.
Okay. And I mean, I said it in the book, you really look at some of the most innovative organization in the world. And you mentioned Dorsey as an example of somebody who has created a model that can really be applied to any industry. So if you look at some of the case studies you have included in Innovation Wars, or even case studies that maybe you may have come across recently, so that aren't necessarily included in the book, what would you say? Obviously, every business is different. They may have a different target market, a different target customers, but still, what are some of the kind of common traits you have seen the most innovative organizations share?
Yeah, thanks, Jan. And so this is actually the meat and the sandwich in the book. I call it the 4 C's of innovation. And basically, I've boiled down the concentrated ingredients of innovation, particularly more what makes an innovative company, down to 4 C's. And those C's are context, culture, capability, and collaboration. And I'll dive a little bit deeper into each of them right now. So context is around how you structure yourself. Everything from financial structure to incentive structures, organizational structure, physical office space. Those things have a big impact on the foundations of creating an innovative company.
Right.
Next, we have is around how do you create a culture that fosters innovation, and that's around things around how do you encourage curiosity, how do you encourage experimentation, how do you encourage the idea that failure is actually just a bunch of lessons, not actually failure. And with that culture, you can then move into what we call the capability phase. So using the tools and frameworks of design thinking, lean startup, innovation accounting, strategic optionality, as common ways of executing on innovation. And it doesn't matter if you are Bank of America or you're the tiniest little startup in South Africa.
Right.
The methods are very, very similar. I've taught ideation methods on all 7 continents, in organizations as small as 2 and as big as 200,000. And the last one, which is called collaboration, is realizing that you have a core competency. There may be no value in you trying to develop adjacent or new capabilities. And so what you do is you try and look for what we call value chain partners. And that's saying, that your capability plus somebody else's capability equals 10, not 2. So you're really looking for the idea is in a single value chain, how do you come together to be worth more than just the sum of the 2 pieces? And so that's the 4 C's that I see continually drive innovative companies around the world.
Okay, interesting. So context, culture, capability, and collaboration. And obviously, all 4 you said are really pillars of what drives innovation. And if we look at the other side of the coin, so if we look at businesses you probably have come across, of the 4 C's, what is the one, or maybe the ones that you think are kind of preventing businesses, or certain businesses, I should say, from being innovative?
So a lot of it was the biggest, what I call the 2 biggest inhibitors to innovation, what I call blind dependence. So blind dependence particularly comes from large organizations that are either blind to a threat or dependent on the incumbent ways. And so I like to use the examples of Borders and Blockbuster, or even Kodak for that moment, where they became so blind to a threat because they believed they had something that was so special that the market wasn't changing, or that the regulation of their industry was not going to evolve, and they would live forever, basically.
Right.
And very quickly, each of them saw their competitive advantage eroded, and actually, in all 3 cases, they went out of business. The second part is fear. People fear what they don't understand. And so entrepreneurs are actually fantastic with fear because most of them have amazing courage to dive in, to try new things, experiment, move on to the next, pivot, that kind of stuff. That's one of the common, let's say, personality traits of a great innovator or entrepreneur is they address a fear of innovation, or particularly fear of change, head on and can actually push through. So the fear and blind dependence are the two biggest challenges in innovation today.
It's interesting, Scott, that you mentioned fear, because it ties into what you told us a moment ago when you talked about culture, because you mentioned the importance of kind of having a mindset or a window for experimentation, right? You mentioned that. So that's definitely a big component, and it's something we have been kind of preaching here on the podcast in the past, the importance of really whenever we get, for example, a lesson, can be from this conversation with you, from a book, from an article, from another podcast, whatever. It's always important to leave some room for experimentation. So to make sure to test things out. So if we look at the 4 C's: context, culture, capability, and collaboration, Scott, what would you say are kind of the first bricks we can put down to start to build our house called innovation? What are some of the things we can do on a regular basis, be it on a daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis, to kind of foster innovation and really take the next step?
Yeah, so if you're a mature incumbent business today, addressing context can be a challenge, because changing where you work or changing organizational structure is actually quite a large change.
Right.
So what actually tends to happen for incumbent businesses that want to become more innovative is they actually create either like offshoots or subsidiaries that are designed to be more innovative from birth, basically. If you're a new business, you have a blank canvas, so you can actually start from scratch. And so what I say is I really like, I grew up in the Yarra Valley in Victoria, Australia, which is famous for its wine. So I like using the analogy of a vineyard. Let's say, Jan, you and I go into business tomorrow. We're going to do our own vineyard. In case of a vineyard, the context is choosing the right location, the right climate, the right piece of land, the right people to work with, and the likes. That's the context. The culture is the preparation of the soil, hiring the right people and having them, having people that actually know how to how to create wine, or even love wine. Right. That's context and culture.
Okay, and in this case, with our example, what would capability be?
So capability is all the farming equipment, all the machinery that you're going to need to actually produce wine. It's the seeds just to plant the vines. It's the recipe, so basically the intellectual recipe from your winemaker. That's all of your capability. And then collaboration is, okay, do you press the grapes yourself on site, or do you get a local partner too? Do you bottle yourself? Who produces your labels? Who's your distributor?
Right.
Is realizing that you don't necessarily need to do everything, but you need to have collaborations with the right people.
Yeah, and I think what you just touched on, Scott, here, the last C, collaboration, is really important, especially for the maybe solopreneurs who are here with you and I, who may think, well, I'm a solopreneur, I kind of take care of things myself, but it's still important to really consider strategic collaborations, because those can be a way to save time or save money and definitely grow your business. And a moment ago, Scott, you talked about the blank canvas. So you said if somebody starts out, having a blank canvas can be something unbelievably great, but at the same time, it can also be a bit scary, because one isn't sure kind of what to do, with which steps to take. So if maybe there is somebody here with you and I, Scott, who is about to start a business, or they've just started out the business and they kind of face the blank canvas, what do you have any tips always related to innovation?
Yeah, so I like to start on what's called, I have a template called the Ideation Canvas. The Ideation Canvas allows you to programmatically or structurally think through your core hypothesis of your business. One of the keys to testing and experimenting with the business model is knowing who is your customer, what problem are you going to solve for them, and how are you going to solve it. So that's your customer hypothesis, your problem hypothesis, and your solution hypothesis. And so all of your experimentation basically becomes a way oriented around those three hypotheses of testing, does this customer really even have this problem? Does a customer with this problem, do they want to have it solved? Okay, that customer has that problem and he wants to have it solved. Is he willing to pay for it?
Right.
Those kind of key tests that you need to test throughout the life cycle of creating the business. And this is everything from a blank canvas right up to a mature organization as well.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with what you say, Scott. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this conversation. And I want to point out a couple of links to everybody who's here with you and I. If you are enjoying the conversation, make sure to let Scott know. You find him on Twitter at Scott Bales. And in the show notes, you're going to find the links to everything Scott and I have talked about, including the link, obviously, to his site, scottbales.com, and the site to his new book, innovationwarsbook.com. And we're going to hear more about the book in a moment. Okay, Scott, so we've touched on the importance of innovation. You shared with us the 4 C's. You told us kind of what are the traits some of the most innovative organizations share, and then you made an example with the vineyard, and you told us a couple of the 2 C's you see kind of holding some businesses back from really embracing innovation and thriving. And when it comes to the context, we made it really clear. With the culture is very clear about capability. Do you have any advice, especially for those who are starting out? Because you said you share now some golden nuggets when it comes to the blank canvas and things like that. And what about capability? And maybe also if you can tie in collaboration or for the new entrepreneurs who are joining us.
Yeah, so capability is an interesting one because it's basically the structured frameworks that they're going to use to execute on your business. And so I borrow a lot of tools and frameworks from the world of design thinking that helps you develop deeper empathy for your end customer. Now, that doesn't matter if you're in B2B, or B2B2C, B2C, B2Gov, you really need to develop empathy for the intended customers that you're going to solve problems for. And the world of design thinking, it's a big topic.
Right.
It's a massive world, and it's, there's trained professionals out there on design thinking. But I borrow a couple of targeted frameworks, mainly the persona modeling, Ideation Canvas, that actually help entrepreneurs just structure their way of thinking through their business in a way that becomes far clearer. And not only far clearer, it gives them the structure that they need to move into the experimentation phase. And that includes as well using things from Steve Blank's book, The 4 Steps to Epiphany. Steve segregates the journey of an entrepreneur into the search and the execute phase. So in the search phase, you're literally just looking for a customer with a problem to solve. In the execution phase, you're actually looking to try and solve that customer need. And similar, that's very, very similar to the stuff that Eric Ries did in his book, The Lean Startup. And so what I do is I borrow the modules or the frameworks that I think are critical for innovators and entrepreneurs and help them actually piece those together as a way that the company operates with everything. Because by making it the core DNA of how a company operates, the whole company becomes innovative as opposed to just having like a small team for innovation.
Actually, that's a very good point you touch on, Scott. So the idea of making innovation a trait of the entire company rather than a section of the company. So for maybe the business owners who are here with you and I, Scott, who already have business, who already have a team or employees and things like that, what do you have any insight on obviously you have already shared some things with us, but do you have any additional insight on how we can kind of extend the innovation mindset, not only to ourselves and to those around you, but really to the entire organization from top to bottom?
Yeah, and I like your last point there on top to bottom because, the best innovators in any company are those that speak to the customers every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be that could be your sales team, that could be your customer service team. Every single day they are hearing the pains of your customers.
Right.
And so they are the best source of innovation ideas. But the biggest gap actually in most organizations is decision makers very rarely speak to customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I often say that as a part of your innovation program, you should encourage senior executives to regularly spend time at the front line of the company, because you never know what they're going to uncover or just get curious about and say, look, this customer problem over here with customer onboarding, I want to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
And decision makers have the power to fix things. And that actually makes not only fantastic internal collaboration between the frontline and the top of the organization, but also accelerates the approval process of innovation, because a senior person sees firsthand the problems you're trying to solve, and they develop empathy for solving that problem.
Yeah, and I think it also empowers the people who kind of get quote unquote consulted by the top level, managers and things like that. Because if you're a customer service rep and kind of you get the opportunity to share your 2 cents with decision makers, I think it definitely makes you feel empowered, and it also motivates you to do a better job. And now, Scott, I have to turn the tables, because the last things we touched on are great for companies with several layers, with several employees and teams and things like that. But what about small businesses? Maybe there are people joining us who they run their business by themselves, or they are maybe couple of people, 3-4 people, or is just a single solopreneur with a few virtual assistants here and there. So in that case, it may be a little bit more challenging to do what we have just talked about. Do you have anything on this?
I wouldn't say it's more challenging. I'd actually say it's actually far more critical. Is again, if you control your business, you should be regularly trying to develop a direct empathy with your customer, including solo entrepreneurs. This is why, for instance, so I run my own consulting house, specifically focusing on innovation. I regularly speak to clients who are not currently my clients. Not because I'm trying to do sales calls, because I'm trying to understand what are the challenges, what are their current outlooks, what is their current, basically develop empathy for the market. And by doing that, I'm better equipped to actually address the needs of my client. And so I say, even for a small business, it doesn't matter if you're in funeral services or e-commerce, you must develop empathy for your customer.
Okay, so Scott, what would you say are a couple of things we can do if we are solopreneurs? What are some of the things we can do to kind of start a conversation with prospects, or for those who are already maybe following what we do? I mean, an example I'd like to quickly share is, are you familiar with the book Ask by Ryan Levesque?
No, very well.
Okay, so something that I've seen working very well is the email when somebody signs up for our newsletter is because we give them something, whether it's an ebook, an email course, a video lesson, whatever. And something I learned from Ryan and from the book Ask, and I actually smile every time I see other entrepreneurs and marketers use that as well on me, is the email where not only you send an email to say thank you for joining my newsletter, but you send them a question. So you ask them, okay, can you just let me know that you got the ebook, and also if you have a moment, what is the number one thing you're struggling with? And I've been surprised, because at first I was thinking, people don't have the time to answer, but I actually got some very interesting replies, and sometimes you can see that people definitely took some 3, 4, 5 minutes to really go on point with what they're struggling with, and that definitely helpful. Do you have any other things that comes to mind that maybe we can do on a regular basis to start a conversation with our customers and really be able to see what's going on with them, what they're struggling with, and so forth?
Yeah, so it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. But another good book that you can read alongside Ryan's is Gary Vaynerchuk's book, The Thank You Economy. Similar things around very empathetic communication. One of the things that I actually do quite regularly, and it's still quite random. Again, when someone signs up for my newsletter, similarly they get something, they get back a free ebook or something like that. But I will actually make an effort once a month to go in and actually make an effort to contact directly the last person to subscribe to my newsletter. And I just want to. I'm not even asking about their problems. I want to find out, how did they find out about me. Just basically get generically curious about them. Often it's not that hard to get them on the Skype, have a Skype chat with them, and at the end of it, they feel like they have a direct connection with me. And I've benefited because I've actually figured out, okay, it's a month of June. This is how Jan found my blog, and this is what he was looking for, and this is how I might be able to help. But I have an advocate of me out in the market. Now I try to do that at least once a month. Often though, I might do it several times a month. And it just becomes an amazing connection you can get with your customer base. And more importantly, if you were to subscribe to my mailing list right now, there is no way in the world you would think, I'm going to chat directly to Scott Bales.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I call you and want to chat to you, and I'm not trying to sell you anything, you're like, wow, that was amazing. And it really does help fantastic new relationships with the market for you. I also do it to existing ones as well. So if I know, again, you can get click-through rates and so forth. If I know that, you like to read my newsletter at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, I'll make an effort saying, let's catch up for a Skype call at 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Just so, again, we're trying to get into context of when I'm relevant to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, Scott, what you just shared with us, I think, is gold, because sometimes if we take the newsletter as an example, sometimes we look at the numbers, we think, okay, I would like to have, 50,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers, and so forth. But what matters is really the engagement. And what you share with us, I love it, because it's something that it definitely helps you stand out from the crowd, because I have to admit, Scott, you're probably the first person I've heard doing this. And I mean, I've heard different strategies, but this one where you literally jump on Skype, I think is great, because it really, like you said, it helps you build empathy with the people who connect with you, who started to follow you, and also gives you insight on some of the things related to your business. So for example, if you start to identify trends that, okay, people often find me through this specific blog post, for example, I've written for site A, then it may be a good idea to spend more time on guest blogging, or maybe you start to identify trends in the terminology. So you're going to see that not only people, or some people have similar pain points, but they often use the same terminology. And that's great, because when it's time maybe to pitch something or to create a sales page or something like that, you're going to be able to use that terminology, and people are really going to feel, whoa, I feel like Scott is really talking to me. So I think it's a great way to go about it. And you said it. It's something that can be done in any industry, regardless of the niche we are in, regardless of the size of the business. And this is great. And I said it early on, Scott, that you are the author of a couple of books, and your latest is called Innovation Wars: Driving Successful Corporate Innovation Programs. So throughout this conversation, you shared some of the things you talked about in Innovation Wars. You shared some case studies. You made some examples with us. I said it. The links to your site, Innovation Wars, Twitter, and everything else we've touched on are in the show notes. And to wrap it up, Scott, can you take a moment to tell us a little bit more about Innovation Wars first and foremost, so what we can expect by reading the book?
Yeah, so Innovation Wars is me practicing what I preach. So yes, the book is full of amazing material and frameworks around the 4 C's. But also I have the 4 Ps for innovative individuals as well. But more importantly, Innovation Wars in itself is an innovation. I advise a crowdfunding author platform called Publishizer. And because of my skill set, I decided to apply that to my book as well. So my book is not only good content, it's actually a living, breathing example of innovation. It's the second highest crowdfunded book in Asia.
Okay, wow.
Second only to my first book. Now, and the method, even the process that I'm going through in the background, in the production process and editing process, is totally different to what most either self-publishers or traditionally published books would have gone through. So I'm applying my own tools to my own book.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, Scott, you got me curious. I mean, you mentioned Innovation Wars was the second most sold book in Asia, and I was wondering who was author, who was at number 1, but it's still Scott Bales. So, congrats on that. And you mentioned Publishizer, and now you got me really curious, Scott, because I mean, you said it. What you're doing with Innovation Wars is basically you putting into practice what you teach. So for all the maybe authors who are here with you and I, or soon to be authors, can you take a moment to kind of shed some light on maybe some of the things you have done, or anyways how innovation and the things we have talked about can be also implemented into a book launch or even a product launch, not necessarily a book, let's say?
Yeah, so one of the biggest unknowns in any industry is whether or not there is a market for your idea, your book, your technology, your app. You just don't know. And so the reason we've structured Publishizer in the way it is to allow me to basically pre-validate the validity and the commercial viability of my book prior to actually bringing it to market.
Okay.
So in the traditional marketing space, you would go to a publishing house and they would take a financial risk on the viability of your book. This is why publishers basically decline 90% of their applications, because what they're trying to do is just say, okay, look, if every book launch costs us $50,000 in editors, publicists, launch product, all that kind of stuff, we're taking a $50,000 gamble on every single book. Right. We don't even know if we're going to make $50,000 out of it. So through Publishizer, what I'm able to do is actually put up the proposal for my book along with the trailer and the likes and a bunch of rewards, and get people to buy the book before it exists. In the same way Kickstarter operates versus some physical products as well. But Publishizer is designed specifically for the needs of an author. Behind the scenes, Publishizer has a fantastic network of all the resources you would need to produce a book. Editors, publicists, cover designers, book agents, print houses, import-export for services and the likes. And it basically says, look, in the case of Innovation Wars, I raised just under $30,000 for my book. So I have $30,000 to spend to deliver my first. So I sold 1,100 copies in my pre-order campaign. So I have $30,000 to launch my book and deliver those 1,100 copies. And I know up front that I have the money to pay a really good editor, a really good cover designer, an awesome campaign director, and the likes. The bit that we've been innovating on in the next book. So when I did Mobile Ready, I did the full self-publishing journey in that I crowdfunded, I produced the book myself, I worked directly with the author, my publicist, I printed the book myself, I imported it into Amazon and built up the whole supply chain. As an author and innovator, I loved the production side, but I hated the distribution side. Putting a book in an envelope at a time and going down to the post office to post it was not a fun part of being an author.
Right.
So what I'm doing now is a model that hasn't been done before, where I take the financial risk of the book by produce it, but I get the crowdfunding campaign to actually fund those resources to bring the book to market, but I'll enter a deal with a traditional publishing house to distribute it. So at the end of my part, I will hand over to a traditional publishing house a book that's already edited, already produced, already market validated. I've already got a bunch of revenue and a bunch of, over 1,000 orders. All they have to do is help me print it, distribute it, and launch it into the market. So for the publishing house, it's a significantly lower financial risk. And also there's a big boost in the fact that I've already proven its viability.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Scott, thank you for sharing that with us. I think is very, very interesting. And it's always nice to hear stories. And I mean, I love the fact that you really do what you teach, and you just share with us the example of how you implemented the things you talk about in Innovation Wars for Innovation Wars itself. And Scott, to wrap it up, the final question I have for you, I mentioned your site, scottbales.com, innovationwarsbook.com for the book, and then you are also on Twitter at Scott Bales. If people would like to connect with you, maybe ask you questions or something like that, what is the best way to do that?
So just a slight correction on your URLs and Twitter handles there. I'm ScottEBales.com.
Sorry, yes, Scott E. Bales, yeah.
I've been trying to buy ScottBales.com for nearly 5 years, but the guy won't sell. So the best way to actually engage me in terms of understanding me and my offering is to go to ScottEBales.com. On there, you'll see my blog, the topics that I talk about a lot, my client base, and also the ventures that I'm already involved in. So I'm already involved in a number of startups, either as a founder myself, an investor, or an ongoing advisor. So Scott E. Bales is the best starting point, and there they can also subscribe to my newsletter.
Perfect. So you heard it, ScottEBales.com. And again, you're going to find the show notes. In the show notes, you're going to find the links to everything Scott and I have talked about in this episode. Scott, thank you so much for being here on the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast and telling us more about your new book, Innovation Wars, and for shedding some light on innovation and some of the things we can do to really embrace innovation and thrive. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
All right, we are back. Scott, thank you very much for sharing some innovation insights here with us and for telling us more about your book, Innovation Wars. And you heard it. Scott and I talked about his book. I mentioned Ask by Ryan Levesque. And if you've been with me before, you heard me saying this. Audible is one of the sponsors of the podcast and is a platform that gives you access to thousands and thousands of audiobooks. As a listener of the 360 Entrepreneur, you can sign up and try Audible completely for free for an entire month. And when you do that, you can also choose an audiobook of your choice. We mentioned Ask by Ryan Levesque, so that's the one I would encourage you to check out. Very, very good stuff, I have to admit. I've read it a couple of times, and I've even listened to the audiobook version one time myself. So 3 times, Ask by Ryan Levesque. And last but not least, I want to touch on 2 more things. One is a tool called Intercom that I've started to see quite many people I follow and companies I follow implementing it on their site. And basically Intercom is a software or a piece of software that you can easily add to your website, and it allows you to interact with people who visit your website. So that can be used for many different things. It can be to better understand visitors, as we touched on with Scott, or it could be to ask a specific question or to direct visitors toward a specific section of your website. Regardless of kind of what you would like to do, make sure to check out Intercom. And the final thing I want to touch on is actually the show notes page. So I mentioned Innovation Wars, the book, I mentioned Ask, and now I mentioned Intercom. The links to everything Scott and I have talked about are on the show notes page at janilunga.com/episode 164. This is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll be back with you next week. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.janilunga.com.